Good morning, everyone. I hope you're all well. We've just passed 10 o'clock now, and I see most people have joined who've registered. So we'll make a start, if that's okay with everyone. Well, good morning, and welcome to today's Preparing to Deliver the Construction Level 3 Qualifications webinar. Thank you all for joining us. We hope you find this session helpful. I am David Pye, Technical Advisor for BSE. I'm joined by my colleague Jason Howe, who's a Technical Advisor for Construction. We're presenting this webinar from home, so please excuse any unwanted background noise or delays in the slides. To engage with the webinar, please type your questions in the Questions tab. You'll find that just on it's normally on the right-hand side of your screen. The main presentation is likely to take around 20, maybe 30 minutes, which will allow plenty of time to answer your questions following all the major slides that we've worked through. We've got a survey as well, which will drop into the chat function in just a few moments. So please access the chat function and follow the link to show your feedback and your thoughts. I'll pass you over to Jason in a moment, but I'll monitor the questions as they come through. I'll try my best to type out responses, but at the end of the presentation, we will try and cover all of those as well. So thank you very much. We hope you take a lot from this webinar. I'd like to pass you over to my colleague, Jason, who'll take you through the main presentation. Thank you, Jason.
Thanks, David. And yeah, good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. As David mentioned, my name is Jason Howe, and I will be taking you through the slide deck today, and David will cover all questions in the background. So just to move it on, obviously David and myself have introduced ourselves. But just to make you aware, obviously some other individuals that we do work very closely with and who are part of our sort of close-knit team. And we are usually joined by our technical advisor colleague Ian Roberts. Unfortunately, Ian can't join us today. Yeah, we are usually accompanied by Ian, who is always very supportive of our centres and providers. And Ian is resting well at home at the minute. And we're again usually joined by Harrod Lloyd-Bynon, who is our policy and stakeholder and partnership manager at City and Guilds, but unfortunately, Harrod is unable to join us either today due to prior engagements. So that's the team essentially. Just to move it on and what we're going to cover. So I've done the welcome and introductions, and what we're going to do then is we're going to kind of go through an 8-step process that we've put together, which will hopefully benefit you all in your preparation to deliver the new level 3 qualifications come September. Okay, so step one, we're going to look at sort of some resources, and we've sequenced these in a manner in which hopefully they'll roll out through the program's delivery. So step one, resource and plan. Step two, plan delivery. Step 3 and 4 and 5, and so on until we get to the last one, which is the learner competency card, which is step 8. I do have to reiterate as well that this webinar covers the construction trades, not building services. Although we are in a consortium with EEL, colleagues at EEL do run their own webinars, and they will cover their own guide to delivery of their level 3 qualifications. So we are only covering the construction ones today. So step one essentially is looking at the resources that we have. Now, if you haven't already, please do pay a visit to our Skills for Wales website and familiarise yourself with sort of the layout and how to navigate around the different pages and mainly the qualification pages, because there are so many resources on there that you can utilise for your planning and preparation of your teaching and learning delivery and your curriculum delivery. And there's also other guides in there which you can use as a prospectus when promoting your courses to potential learners that you may have. So please do visit the Skills for Wales website, and the website is always evolving as new and more resources are uploaded. There is also an area there where you can upload third-party resources, and you know, we're happy to engage with you. If you have some fantastic resources that you'd like to share with others, please do let us know, and we can ensure that they can be uploaded onto the website. You'll already see that there are some resources on there from some other providers in Wales. We also have some delivery planners, and the one on the screen there is just a high-level delivery planner which is set out in the weeks. We do have some more detailed delivery planners on the website as well. And this one here was just to give a highlight curriculum model essentially across the weeks and the terms that you may run in and the different units that you deliver as well. So, you know, just a high-level overview of when you may plan to deliver certain units. And, you know, you would sequence them however you feel is necessary. These spreadsheets are in a Microsoft Excel document, so they are adaptable. You can pull them apart, you can amend them to suit what you like. You can add additional rows in there or different components that you may want to include, like formative assessments and stuff that you may want to develop and issue to learners. This certainly complements any scheme of learning that you work towards, and this is your sort of initial high-level plan, if you like. And you can print these off, you can display them in classrooms, you can share them over a VLE, or you can email them to learners and parents if needed. And we also have a blank delivery planner which is online as well, and again that can be used and utilized however you may see fit, and to put in any and all detail that you wish. With regards to teaching resources, we do work very closely with colleagues from Hodder Education, and Hodder Education are the partner publisher with City and Guilds for the textbooks. And you may be aware of some of the recent textbooks that have been launched in the past few years, including the carpentry and joinery and the bricklaying ones at level 2 and level 3. But there's also ones on there for painting and decorating and plastering, and the BSE ones as well, which will always be useful. Now, Hodder Education have produced a bespoke textbook for the foundation qualification, but they haven't produced a new textbook for the level 3. And the reason being is that there is already a textbook out there, and centres may already have purchased those to support the delivery of the previous level 3 diplomas. Now, rather than, you know, giving more cost and expense to centres, what Hodder Education have done is they have mapped their current suite of textbooks to the new qualifications. And those mapping documents are all on the Hodder Education website that you can access. Hodder Education are very approachable, and they're always willing to listen to ideas and thoughts on potential new textbooks or potential resources that they could produce to support the delivery of the teaching and learning on your level 3 and other programs such as foundation and progression. They're also looking for scrutineers, reviewers and authors as well. So if anybody is interested in working with Hodder Education, or you'd like to review some of the content or purchase textbooks, please do get in touch with them. The name on the screen there is Thomas Stotter. However, we've only just heard yesterday, unfortunately, that Thomas is to leave Hodder Education. So the new contact is a lady called Gemma Simpson. Now, Gemma's email address is simply gemma.simpson@hoddereducation.co.uk. And if we get time, we will also put that in the chat. So it's not Tom Stotter anymore, it is Gemma Simpson.
I'll drop it in just now, Jason.
Thank you, David. Just continuing the theme of support resources, and with regards to the step 1, on the website as well, we also have the qualification handbook, the assessment packs and the employer confirmation guides. And again, when you are planning your delivery and an assessment of your level 3 qualifications, this should essentially be your first port of call to look at what units, the content of the units, the GLH assigned to each unit, and what it's going to entail. And this will allow you to effectively do that high-level plan which we showed earlier in preparation for moving on to step 2. Now, to take your delivery planner or delivery model to the next step, we've again evolved the delivery planners now, and we've adapted them so that you can put in some additional information. And this would essentially, or can essentially, contribute to a scheme of work as well, or scheme of learning. And on the screen there is just a blank exemplar of the essential detail planning for delivery. And in the next slide, we're going to show you what that may look like in practice. So this slide essentially just shows some detail with regards to, you know, week 1 could be induction. You're going to do some health and safety inductions, induction to the college, and the different packs you may do. And, you know, weeks 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 essentially go into your delivery, and on there we've listed unit 105 as content delivery with other bits and pieces as well. So you've got some practical highlighted in there as well as some sort of basic cutting, health and safety, and understanding construction practices in Wales. So it's, you know, we started to put a little bit more detail, a little more meat around the bones with regards to structuring a delivery planner. And we've also recorded in there some weeks where you could introduce some formative assessment, because as much as this qualification is unitized, there are no formal formative assessments on this qualification anymore. It's all summatively assessed. So as a centre now, you have the autonomy to develop your own formative assessments for your learners to monitor their progress. Pardon me, just a little bit more detail. Again, this is just another exemplar of how a delivery planner can be amended, adapted, to suit your delivery needs and the content and topics that you're going to cover, as well as some additional centre-based activities that you may do, such as quality assurance or different team meetings. Because, you know, in year one delivery of this, you know, you may want to work very closely with colleagues, so you might have regular team catch-ups or buzz meetings or general meetings that you may want to get together, and also you might want to do some standardization activities, those type of things. And this can all be recorded on this one document, but again, it's in a spreadsheet format, Excel document, so you can amend it, you can adapt it to suit your needs. And please do, because they are a fantastic resource that hopefully you'll get a lot of use out of and find very user-friendly and helpful to you. So that's step 1 and step 2. We're now going to move on to step 3. So now you're starting to, you've planned your delivery and you've been delivering all of the teaching and learning to your learners. Now we're going to start looking at the methods of assessment. And again, you may want to include these on your delivery planners. Now, we have this on the screen here is the assessment methods for the core qualifications. So this is for your learners who may not have undertaken the foundation qualification. As part of the apprenticeship framework, they will be required to complete the core qualification, which essentially is the exact same as the foundation. However, on the foundation, for a full-time learner, they would do 2 trades essentially. For the core qualification as part of the apprenticeship, obviously they would only do the 1 trade area which is aligned to their apprenticeship. So with the core, you've got an on-screen assessment, which is externally set and marked by us at City and Guilds, and you have a practical project, which again is externally set, but you guys internally mark that, and then we externally verify it. Then you have a guided discussion. Now we've sort of give some guidance around that discussion. There is a typo on the screen that says externally marked, but it is internally marked, sorry. But again, it goes through external verification. So there is a typo on screen there. The guided discussion is internally marked, but it is externally verified. So when you do these assessments, you will provide your learners with provisional grades. They will go undergo quality assurance and verification by the awarding organisation. For this one, obviously, it's City and Guilds because it's the core. We would also do the core qualification as part of the BSE level 3 as well. And then we would issue the final grades on those assessments. With regards to sequencing this, learners must complete their practical project prior to undertaking the guided discussion, because obviously the practical project feeds the guided discussion, and that is where they will take content from the practical for discussion in the guided discussion, obviously. So that's the core. We're now going to have a look at the level 3. So the level 3, now this is, again, the assessment types are the same. You've got 3 modes of assessment. You have some on-screen assessments, and for the purpose of this, we call them test 1 and test 2. These are both externally set and marked by the awarding organisation, and for the purpose of this, it's ourselves at City and Guilds. Then you have the practical project. The practical project is internally set and internally marked by your on-site assessors, but it does need to go through external quality assurance or external verification by ourselves. Then you move on to the professional discussion. This is externally set by us as the awarding and assessment organisation, and we externally mark that and externally verify that as well. And we will issue trade-based assessors to conduct the professional discussion with your learners. The employer confirmation must have been completed prior to the professional discussion commencing or being booked. And also, as with the core qualification, the practical project must be completed again prior to the professional discussion in this instance, because again, it naturally feeds in. So the sequence is imperative that the practical project and the employer confirmation guides are both completed prior to learners undertaking the professional discussion. Again, with regards to the practical project, you will issue provisional marks, and the final awarded marks will come from ourselves at City and Guilds. With regards to some more methods of assessment, I've mentioned previously the employee confirmation. Now, these are the guides that are on the website as well, and these are where learners will document all of their evidence and record their evidence as part of their employee confirmation guide. And all evidence must meet the occupational competency statements that have been set by industry. And all the sections of this, all the mandatory sections have to be complete. And again, just to re-emphasize that the employer confirmation and all the documented evidence needs to be complete prior to the professional discussion. The employer confirmation guide, we must stress, is not like an NVQ portfolio. Hence why we're trying to change some wording and terminology, where we're trying to remove the word portfolio, because we don't want it to be sort of policed essentially as an NVQ. This is a documented evidence structure which is designed to be led by the learner and the employer essentially. And the employer confirmation guide, although it has essentially no linking with the qualification, except that it has to be complete prior to the professional discussion, it does support the learner in applying for their relevant competency card. The overall qualification results are graded either a pass, merit or distinction. And as I mentioned previously, you will only ever issue provisional grades for the practical project. Through our internal and external quality assurance, we will issue the final grade and we will confirm the grade for that qualification. With regards to the professional discussion, the external assessor will confirm the grade on that, and it will go through our own process and structure of quality assurance prior to it being combined with the other grades that the learners have achieved through their practical project and their test 1 and test 2. With regards to resits, now unfortunately if a learner is unsuccessful, they are permitted to resit. If a learner is required to do any resits, obviously through the assessments, it is imperative that they do receive the appropriate level of feedback and support so that they can be developed further in preparation for a resit of that assessment. And all the guidance can be found in the assessment pack on the resit and resubmission structure. So again, that is all in the assessment pack. So we're just going to move step 3 on a little bit, as we're going to look at some assessment rules across the level 3, and we're going to give you some scenarios here of what a learner would need to do. So scenario A is a learner that starts their apprenticeship and level 3 is direct entry. So they haven't been on a foundation or progression qualification or any other construction qualification prior to starting their their apprenticeship. So what will this learner need to complete as part of their qualifications, as part of their apprenticeship and assessments? So what they will do is they will sit 3 externally set and externally marked multi-choice question tests. So you've got 1 for the core, and then you've got test 1 and test 2 for the level 3. They will also need to sit 1 externally set but internally marked core practical project and 1 internally marked guided discussion. Again, that forms the core. They will also have to complete 1 employer set internally assessed project covering their chosen trade area, making sure that they meet the minimum assessment criteria as covered in the occupational competency statements. And then as the very, very final assessment, they will complete 1 externally marked professional discussion. Now that on the screen there is if a learner has come into the apprenticeship as a direct entry. So if they've got no previous experience on any construction qualifications. Scenario B, slightly different. So this is if a learner has gone from one of your foundation full-time courses and qualification onto an apprenticeship. So what will this learner need to do? They will essentially do they'll be exempt essentially from the core qualification because they'll have covered that as part of the foundation, and they will complete 2 externally set and externally marked multi-choice tests, test 1 and test 2, and they will complete 1 employer set, internally assessed project covering their chosen trade, and finally, they would do the externally marked professional discussion. So if the learner has previously achieved the foundation, regardless of what occupation they have achieved it in, and then progress on to an apprenticeship, they are exempt from the core qualification as part of their apprenticeship and all the core qualification assessments. So that's scenario B. There is a final scenario, and I know we could go through scenarios all day long. We just want to give a bit of flavour and a bit of structure with regards to how you can plan your curriculums given learners' prior achievements. And we do understand that you will also have had learners who've completed previous level 2 full-time diploma qualifications and gone on to the level 3 apprenticeship, and also learners that have completed a level 2 apprenticeship and have progressed onto their level 3 also. So we are aware of that, and we did cover that last week in a joint meeting that we did with colleagues from Bark Wales and Qualification Wales. So scenario C, the final one of these, this is if a learner has completed the foundation and progression. So it's unlikely that learners will have completed both of these by September because they only launched last September, but obviously this is for consideration further down the line. So they completed the foundation and progression, and they are now have secured employment as an apprentice, and they are going to go into their apprenticeship and the level 3. So what will they do? They will do 1 externally set and externally marked multi-choice test, which is test 2, and they will do 1 employer set internally assessed project covering their chosen trade, and finally they will do 1 externally marked professional discussion. Because the learner's already done the foundation, they're exempt from the core and the core assessments. And because the learner has completed the progression, they are also exempt from test 1 of the level 3 multi-choice tests. So, by completing the previous full-time courses and qualifications, you see how they naturally fit into the level 3 qualification. So that's step 3. We'll move it on. Step 4, we're looking at roles and responsibilities. I'm not going to go through all of these in detail. You will get this presentation. We just wanted to pick up some roles and responsibilities of both the learner, the employer, and the provider. So just to pick up on a few there, complete the core assessments, complete the level 3 assessments, the training sessions with the provider to develop the knowledge and skills, demonstrate occupational proficiency and competency, and contribute to the employee confirmation guide. So there's just some brief roles and responsibilities there that you can share with your learner when you're laying out your expectations and the expectations of the qualification and apprenticeship. With regards to the employer, again, these are the roles and responsibilities of the employer, and we do share this with the employers that we have the webinars with as well. And again, just to pick up on a few, they'll work with and support the apprentice through their apprenticeship, provide opportunities for the apprentice to carry out activities, support the apprentice in gathering their evidence to confirm proficiency in the activities, again, contributing to the employee confirmation guide, and support the apprentice in applying for their relevant industry trade competency card as well. So again, just some brief roles and responsibilities for the employer. Then we've got the provider ones as well. And again, I'm not going to read them each one word for word. You will get this presentation. And they're pretty self-explanatory. We'll attend the initial meetings with the employer to identify the range of activities. Could even include durations in there as well. You need to meet with the employer and the learner to agree durations. Ensure evidence gathered is by all of their apprentices is appropriate, sufficient, etc. And support the employer and apprentice in compiling the documented evidence. This is where we have that word portfolio that we are going to remove. It is going to be documented evidence reference to the occupational competency statement. So again, just some brief roles and responsibilities there of the provider as well. So that's step 4. Step 5, so you've been delivering, essentially, you've gone through some roles and responsibility. The learner is well underway with their apprenticeship and their qualifications if they are doing the core and the level 3. As with everything in all qualifications, they will need to go through quality assurance, and as the awarding organisation, obviously we will conduct all external quality assurance, but there is still a requirement for the providers to conduct their internal quality assurance. So we've just given some pointers here, essentially about things that you may need to think about. What do we need to consider when adapting current assessment and IQA practices to the level 3? So is there opportunities here for standardization activities, some internal assessor or IQA, CPD or development? Thinking about the changes to your assessment methods as well, because there's no formative assessments anymore. So what are you going to do as a centre to assess your learners' progress? And so again, it's giving you guys the autonomy to develop your own assessments now, and also think about how you're going to be working with your EQA. And we've just given some bullet points there on different things that you should be considering: strategies, rationales, risk-based and rating approach when looking at sampling practices, potential CPD, needs of assessment, assessors or IQAs, standardization, which we mentioned, carrying out the activities, sharing good practices as well, that's always critical, and the documentation that you use as well. So these are just some prompts and things for you to sort of be considering when looking at your IQA practices. There's a bit of an IQA development task as well. We've created this document here where you can start putting grades against some of the pointers that we've listed, and then obviously you'll know the areas that you may need to focus on moving forward with regards to your IQA. And you just apply the score of 3, 2 or 1 or 0, whether it's yes, mostly, partially, or you don't do it at all. And then you would grade yourselves internally, and this will hopefully be a good tool that you can use when looking at your own development. So that's step 5. Moving it on to step 6. So just looking at the employer engagement now, and the employers do have a more enhanced role in the delivery of the new apprenticeship suite of qualifications, as they essentially through the employer confirmation guide show how the occupational competency statements have been met to meet the industry standards. So obviously the documented evidence that the learners produce all goes to contributing against that, and the employers and the supervisors that work for these employers essentially sign off the learner against these occupational competency statements. Now, they're not assessors, so they don't need to be assessor qualified. They're just confirming that the learner is consistently working at or above the industry standard requirements set out. Again, all the qualification handbook, assessment guidance, assessment packs, and the employee confirmation guide are on the Skills for Wales website. So do please direct any employees that you're working with to the website as well. With regards to documented evidence, there is a lot of guidance in the employee confirmation guide on this, and what we've said is it'll be approximately 15 pieces of evidence. Sometimes it'll be more, sometimes it'll be less. It's just a guide. It's not set in stone, if you pardon the pun. It is just a guide, and it also depends on the quality of the evidence and the holisticness of the evidence that's being produced. If it's good, solid, holistic evidence, it's probably going to be less than 15. If it's weak evidence at best, you're probably going to need more pieces of evidence. So it's all based on the quality. The evidence is mapped against the occupational competency statements, and also looking at the varied evidence sources that you can use. Photographs, videos are a great tool now. Evidence from site in the workplace, statements from employees, statements from learners, witness testimonies, assessor observations, these type of things all contribute as evidence sources. The evidence, as ever, must be valid, sufficient, reliable, current, and authenticated by the employer, and the employer statement confirming the competency and sufficiency of the evidence against the occupational competency statement, and that's located in the employee confirmation guide, where they authenticate it by signing it off. And it doesn't have to be the head boss of the organisation, it can be the supervisors that are working with these learners on site. Just to continue this step 6, with regards to employer engagement, we've just given a little bit of another 8-step guide. We like our 8-step guides. We've just given another one on how you can be working with the employers in a sequence manner. And again, I'm not going to go through them word for word, but apprentice secures employment, starts their learning journey. Step 3, developing agreed quality assurance checks for the employer confirmation process. So early on, it's starting to think about those type of processes and procedures. Step 5, observation of practical industry project, apprentice progresses to the final assessment, and so on. So you can share this with your employees as well, so they're aware of the process. With regards to the evidence, we've just provided a couple of examples there, and the one on the left is essentially a diary, and well, they're both diaries, but on this one here, it shows where the learner's prepared some tasks, and he's plastering a bedroom wall. He's put a little bit of a description, not war and peace, a brief description, because the devil's in the detail in the video that they've provided. So there's a 4-minute 50-second video on there of the learner plastering a bedroom wall in a flat. So the devil's in that detail there. And similarly, as it progresses, he's now plastering in the lounge in a new build, a few months later, but again, a brief description with a video that supports it. And then finally, the learner's obviously got a range of methods here, so another day, another time, but this time the learner's been able to provide some photographs, and these are quite happy, where you've got a sort of before, during and after sequence of photos on there. To the right hand side, we have a similar process where the learner has provided a bit of a description, and again, he's got a range of photographs showing the range of tasks that they've done. And on the second part, what they've done here is a brief description, but they've provided a link to the video, but they've also time-stamped it as well. So minutes 2 to 4 is where the learner is plastering the wall. 4 to 6, they're now plastering the ceiling. So what they've done is they've been able to condense this video into shorter images. I don't think he's plastered the wall in 2 minutes and then the ceiling in 2. What they've done, they've been able to sort of chop the video down so that it is more succinct and specific to the assessments. And then there is a video link to the second video there of him plastering the ceiling, which is minutes 1 to 4. We can't use TikToks. All of a sudden you see a wall that hasn't been plastered, you cover the camera, and voila kazam, you take the camera back and the wall's plastered. That's not acceptable. As forms of evidence, you would expect to see some sort of before and during of the learner actually conducting the practices. So yeah, just be mindful that we're not allowing TikToks as part of the evidence process. Who knows, moving forward, you never know. With regards to CPD, myself, David, Ian and Anne Harrod will be back on the road. We've been on the road recently, supporting our centres and the employees with certain events, and we'll be starting that again come September. So what we've got on the Skills for Wales website, we have our event and support planner, which is basically outlining in each month what we are going to be doing moving forward from August this year. And it covers everything from sort of virtual centre sessions or keep in touch sessions where we'll invite you all along. Everybody can join. We'll hold those generally over Teams, or we'll be doing centre surgeries come September, October and November, where we'll visit your centre for an hour and a half, and we'll be available to support and answer questions. December and January, we'll see the launch of our level 3 support videos, so they will take our 8-step guide and break it down. And in February, we'll begin our level 3 webinars, where we'll start and go through a lot of the generic content on the level 3. March and April, we'll be back on the road again, doing the CPD sessions like what we did for the foundation and progression, except this time there'll be half-day sessions. So hopefully it's easier for centres to make staff available, because we're going to cover the generic content as part of a webinar series, and then when we get out there on the road and do the CPD sessions, we'll get more into the bones of the development and the CPD, including the assessments. And then in May, we'll be doing more kit sessions, and we'll look to maybe do some more level 3 support videos, and this is where we may share some excellent practices that centres want to share with us. June again, we can conduct more one-to-one centre sessions, and again, these will be similar to the surgery, where we'll be in the centre for a short time and people can come and ask questions and get any support they wish. And then July again, we'll go back to virtual. If there's anybody left, if they haven't all gone on leave, we can do some virtual keep in touch sessions as well. So there's quite a range going on next year. There's keep in touch sessions and webinars, virtual centre activities. We've got level 3 dedicated webinars, some face-to-face surgeries, and some live CPD sessions as well. And these are all on the Skills for Wales website. They're also in Welsh. If you prefer the Welsh version, again, they're on the Skills for Wales website, but on the Welsh side of the website. That's where you'll find them. Following on from that, with regards to further CPD, some other additional CPD that you may wish to identify for staff. Assessor and IQA qualifications may need to be considered, trade-specific qualifications or industry updating as well. You've got some heritage updating also for consideration. So we just wanted to give 2 or 3 prompts with regards to other potential CPD that you may want to do with your staff. The competency card now. So this is step 8. So the learners have essentially and hopefully completed everything. They've completed all of their on-program qualifications. They've done and successfully completed all of the assessments, and especially on the level 3, and they've completed the employee confirmation guide. Now they're ready to complete their CITB health and safety and environment test for their CSCS or CPS card. And we've provided a link there where learners can do that and apply for the cards. And on the screen also is all of the different qualifications or the occupational specialisms or trades linked to their level, their colour card they will get, and who issues that card for. So predominantly it is CSCS, except for plant operations, which we know comes from CPS. So that is what a learner will need to achieve, successfully achieve in order to attain their trade competency card. I've talked for long enough, so we're going to pause for a little bit to allow any questions to come in. Whilst we are going to do that, I have 7 questions that I would like to go through with you, which may hopefully answer any of the potential questions that you may have. So whilst people are typing away, I will cover the next slide and answer some questions that we've already set. So question 1, does the employer have to be a qualified assessor ultimately, you know, because they're more involved now, especially through the employer confirmation guide? No, the employer does not have to be a qualified assessor. They are not making any assessment judgments against a set of assessment criteria. All the employer is doing is confirming the learner is proficient in against their occupational competency statements. They're not making any assessment decisions. The assessment decisions are ultimately undertaken by your on-site assessors through our Evolve platform and through our assessors when they conduct a professional discussion. Do we have to check the employer is qualified? Essentially, no, there is no requirement to check that the employer is qualified through your own internal vetting processes. You know, I'm sure you would be assessing that the employer is suitable for the learner to be able to obtain the range of evidence that's required, the documented evidence, and that they're going to allow the learner to and the apprentice to receive all of their required support through their apprenticeship. Is there an NVQ? There is no NVQ as part of the new suite of construction qualifications. The NVQs haven't disappeared, they are still there and can be applied for adult learners who want to progress into the industry, but they do not form any part of the apprenticeship framework or the construction suite of qualifications. How much evidence is needed? Page 4 of the employee confirmation guide outlines all of that, and we have covered it in this presentation as well, and there are some specifics on that. So page 4 of the employee confirmation guide outlines all of the evidence requirements. Is the employer's sign-off part of the qualification? I covered this earlier. No, it's not. Although it does have to be complete prior to the final assessment. So they are slightly aligned, but it does not form any part of the official qualification. The employee confirmation guide, or sign-off as it's commonly known, is there to allow the learner to successfully apply and attain their competency card when they have completed their level 3 qualification. Is the evidence IQA'd? Yes, working in collaboration with your employer, the IQA will check that there is sufficient evidence to allow the learner to proceed to their final assessment. So as part of the IQA process, they're not second assessing. You're monitoring the assessment process and that there's sufficient evidence against the minimum assessment criteria as laid out in the occupational competency statements. And then finally, when can evidence gathering commence? So compiling the evidence, again, we've used that word portfolio, and this is our mistake because we're trying to avoid that. It should only start once the employer is satisfied that the apprentice is consistently working at or above the criteria set out in the occupational competency statements. However, what I would say to that as well as a bit of a caveat is please don't miss an opportunity as well, because some of the tasks that the learners will undertake are so diverse. You may not be aware of when the next opportunity for that learner to do that task comes around. So, please don't miss an opportunity for the learner to start generating and gathering their evidence. That's all of the question and presentation from me today. I am going to pause and invite David back if there are any more questions that's coming through the questions tab.
Thank you very much, Jason. We've had a few questions in, but no new ones for a while, so I'll just cover these. If you do have any questions, please do type away now. Type any queries, questions, thoughts. May not even be a question, may just be a discussion topic or something you'd like us to go over again. But we've been asked about the Hodder education books. We've put the new email address in the questions tab and also in the chat. If you do contact Gemma, if you just say that you've been on this webinar, you've listened to David and Jason on the webinar and they spoke about the book, could you please give us some further information about the books, maybe some inspection copies, information about the foundation, the trade books. We've also got ebooks or something they call eBoost, which is a style of ebooks and interactive textbooks for tutors. So they've got quite a lot of support and information. And if you tell them that you've been on this webinar with us, then hopefully they'll send you some inspection copies. The other question was about, does the employer confirmation guide need to be completed before the assessment on site can take place? There isn't a natural block that stops that. It must be done before the professional discussion, but we do recommend that it's done before the project starts. That's a recommendation. And if we think about it, if we're guiding learners and employers towards an end assessment model as part of the project, it flows more naturally if a learner has done the experience to met the requirements of the employer on site, they have that range, that experience before we will do an assessment. You wouldn't expect the first time that they do a task that they're assessed on it for their apprenticeship. You'd expect them to have some experience before they're actually assessed on it. So I would be guiding the learners probably and the employers that this is all done and it's kind of a stamp that, okay, this is complete, we'll now enter you for your project. So for me, it works more logically that way. But I suppose that's for you to work with your employers and your learners and see which is most appropriate. If you've got any thoughts on that, please drop us a question or some information in the chat. If you think our advice is logical and will work best, then please let us know. We'll continue offering that advice. If you can see any issues with that, please let us know. But that's our advice, that it's part of the journey. And when the learners had that experience and completed that journey, their education in the college, you're now ready to take your end project. And now we're going to carry out the actual assessments that lead to the completion of the qualification. So there's no further questions. We won't make you hang about here any longer than we need to. If this has naturally come to an end and we've answered all of your questions, and thank you very much to Jason for covering those slides. I do like the way they're broken down into supportive steps, and it'll work well when we look to do some mini recordings and little videos of those steps separately. So they may just be a couple of minutes long, and you can drop back into those as and when you need that support. So I think it works quite well, Jason. It'd be great if we can hear from everyone else to see if they think it's supportive and helpful as well. Any feedback you can offer is very welcome. If you look in the chat, and again, I dropped it in the questions as well, we've put the links to the feedback survey. So this is your choice to have your say on what's going well, what isn't, what support you would like moving forward. Jason shared those slides showing the support that we have planned. So there's a lot of high-level support planned. We'll, as we get closer to those dates, we'll start agreeing with the centres which actual dates work best, and we'll try and meet those in as much as we can with yourselves. Sometimes it's not possible to meet everyone's needs because there's lots of visits to take place, and when we travel, we try and do them back to back to make it easier on our time commitments. But we'll try our best to accommodate everyone as best we can. Jason, there doesn't seem to be any further feedback. So all I would say really is just a big thank you for coming along. I hope it's been helpful. Big thank you to Jason for pulling together much of this information and presenting this today. There's further opportunities. If you think of any other questions afterwards, please get in touch, or please come along to some of the further sessions that we're hosting. But if there's no further questions, just a big thank you to everyone for attending. Jason, is there any final comments before we close?
Nothing from me, just to say thank you to all the people here. And yeah, keep an eye out for us in September if you want to come and speak to us when we do the surgeries. Please do. It's great to meet people in person. So yeah, just thank you everybody, and thank you, David.
Well, enjoy the rest of your day. I hope the weather remains to be nice and sunny, and we look forward to seeing you all again soon. Take care, everyone. Goodbye.